Welcome back, North Metro TV. I'm Eric Nelson. Local Decision 2022 continues, and in the house with us is Jess Robertson, running for City Council Ward 2 in Blaine. Of course, you've been on the council for 4 years, but hey, you're back out on the campaign trail. How's that going, Jess?
It's going. You know, we've made a lot of great progress, so it's been great to give some positive things that we have done in the last 4 years and to continue to move forward to complete those things, like Highway 65 and development and some of the hot button issues we have locally in the community. So it's been good. It's been good.
What's the value of being in the trenches and knocking on the doors, the meet and greets and all that stuff?
The value is people know exactly what you're saying. You have 4 years now of history. They can go back, they can watch meetings, they can go read social media posts or city newsletters to say, hey, here's what City Council has been doing. And so I think having that level of experience when you are knocking on someone's door is huge, because now I'm not just telling them something they want to hear, I'm telling them something that's actually happening in their community, in their backyard. So the definite advantage to being in the trenches.
So do you feel like the council learning curve is past now for you? With 4 years, that's a pretty good chunk of time.
That's a yes and no. I mean, for the most part, I would say we're about 95% uploaded, but there are always random things that you don't know. We say you don't know what you don't know until you realize you don't know it. So there's always something to learn. So it's not something where where you can get bored. You're like, well, I've maxed out. I've done all I can do. No, there's always something. Intricacies of zoning or development. There's always something that I don't know. So
you brought up the monstrous topic of Minnesota State Highway 65. Of course, it's a wedge issue in Blaine. Hopefully this thing gets resolved sooner rather than later. You have a MnDOT background. You're on the Highway 65 Coalition.
Yeah.
Now, can you fast track this?
One thing the City of Blaine has committed to strategically with staff and council is to continue to keep Highway 65 prioritized. So what that means is instead of the city sitting back and waiting for state or federal governments to come through with funding, we really just put the foot on the gas pedal and said, okay, we're gonna go seek out every opportunity for grants, for engagements. We hired federal lobbyists, so we've taken trips to Washington, D.C. We have a federal delegation here next week, so we'll be giving them a first-hand tour of all the gridlock on Highway 65. We'll be out in D.C. again in December. So really, for us and council and city staff has really been to keep it at the top of the priority list always. We are always talking about Highway 65 because it is difficult when it's not just the city's responsibility. You have to wait on the state, you have to wait on MnDOT, you have to wait on studies. Just the section that we're looking at right now is a $160 million price tag. The City of Blaine doesn't have $160 million, so it takes a lot of teamwork, and we're working on it. We're wearing down the federal and state government, so we're really hoping to see that funding come through.
Yeah, and you know, the residents of Blaine and the other people who use 65, I mean, they're tired of the hassle factor and the sea of brake lights, all that red they see, you know, coming and going. And to get MnDOT's attention, though, that does take some time because you have other cities and communities saying, hey, we need funding for this road. So you're in competition, aren't you?
I feel like the Northern Metro is always in competition, right? For lack of a better adjective, Blaine's not the sexy city. Like Edina, Eden Prairie, we're not 94, we're not 35E, but the fact of the matter is Highway 65 moves over 55,000 cars per day. That's more than 35W. So imagine traveling on 35W with a stoplight every quarter of a mile. It's insane. And so what we've done is we've really engaged in a way that allows us to tell the story of the City of Blaine. Like, you can't go in and just say, yeah, we have really busy roads. Nope, we come in with crash data. We come in with the police department saying, hey, it's slowing down our response time. And then you add in all the busy activity in our community. We have 7.5 million people coming through our city every year. And it's just undue burden on a road that's really the state's responsibility. So we're working on it. We're building relationships. We're continuing to tell the story. We'll get it done.
So the growth has been explosive. Blaine's already over 70,000 residents. Projections are 100K someday, maybe down the road.
Oof, I don't know if
way
it's
down
100. Yeah, maybe about 85,000 is kind of where we're sitting at for a projection. We need to keep some open space.
No, and that's, how do you find that balance? Because Blaine's growing. If you do get 65 up to speed, that probably will foster more growth. But how do you keep the green spaces, the parks, improve the sidewalks, so you have still have a little bit of a small town charm?
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't want to lose our character as a community, definitely. I envision when 65 is completed, that would more give life to commercial and retail growth more so than residential growth. I think for a long time, City Hall was focused on that residential growth. And we've kind of taken a pause a little bit, honestly, because there's some things the city can control and some things we can't. If a private landowner sells their property to a developer, the city can't step in and stop that from happening. So growth is going to happen as some of those lots, especially in that northeast part of the city, those property owners just decide to sell their land. I think part of the slowdown that we're seeing too is inflation, right? The supply chain, cost of goods, all those things are really slowing down the single family home market. And we don't want to lean heavily on multifamily because Blaine isn't an apartment, high density community. There'll be pockets of our city that will reflect that more urban kind of feel, but that's not the citywide vibe that we're going for. We absolutely want to keep our natural character. We have about 1,400 acres of open space, 68 parks. That's almost 1 park per 1,000 people. Like, that is absolutely insane, and it's something that we should be really proud of, and we absolutely want to preserve that because it means a lot to our residents to have the ability to visit one of 68 parks, 200 plus miles of trails, a wetland sanctuary. So those are important part of our value system as well.
The Northtown conundrum, how do you solve it? Some people describe it as a jigsaw puzzle. You've got Blaine there where it sits, and then Coon Rapids and Spring Lake Park are right there on the fringe. I mean, that could be turned into something that right now is, struggling into maybe a positive. Am I right?
Yeah, so I want to be clear, by conundrum, you mean the redevelopment plans? Okay, you're referring to it as a conundrum. So we did invest in a redevelopment plan. We used the same group. It's a group called Damon Farber that did the Rosedale area project. So I know a lot of our residents gravitate to Rosedale just because they have different amenities, different restaurants, and it's a different vibe. We want people to stay here. And a lot of things, one of the things that residents may not know is Northtown is our #1 taxpayer. And so if Northtown fails, that's a problem. So the conundrum as a whole, as we'll call it, the redevelopment project, the drawings are out. We haven't selected a master developer for that project. That's a long-term plan. That's like a 25, 30 plus year project. And to your point, that will take engagement from Spring Lake Park, Coon Rapids, MnDOT, Anoka County, because the infrastructure is going to have to change. The roads are going to have to change, the walkability. But I do think it'll definitely give life to that area. It needs it. There's a lot of gray out there. There's a lot of concrete. And one of the top priorities that we have is turning that gray green. So how can we encourage more public parks, more open space? We've even dialogued the potential of a community center. So we really want to have that area, give it some new life, and have something that the residents can be proud of and something that, the current residents can get behind as well.
I've heard some people say Blaine needs an actual downtown, a core, a gathering spot. Where do you land on that?
That's difficult, right? So the city's 34 square miles, so it's really hard to just pinpoint one location. So I really think in theory we almost have two. You have the 105th area that the city's working on and prioritized for redevelopment, and then the Northtown area as well. So I think they work in tandem, really, because the northern part is really serving like an athletic, driven, tourist and commerce type of thing. And the southern area is more like necessity. It's your shopping, it's your grocers, it's that kind of thing. So I think there's a place for both.
The National Sports Center, I think it's definitely one of the crown jewels in Blaine. Do you envision that thing getting some upgrades down the road? I know that's not a city issue, but you do have to take care of these facilities, don't you?
The Sports Center is a difficult one. It's similar to Highway 65, where the state owns Highway 65, but it runs right through the middle of our city. So it's the same with the NSC. That's a state facility. So when we have a divided state government, it definitely makes it challenging to ensure that what's in our community is receiving the funding that it needs. But the city has stepped in, and we've really kind of changed the relationship with the NSC to create more of a partnership and an open dialogue, so they know what we have going on and we know what they have going on. And we've stepped in to help with things when they need help moving maintenance facilities or adding onto buildings. So we do try to help where we can.
Blaine relies a lot on tourism. I mean, obviously with 3M Open and the PGA Tour, and as we mentioned, Northtown perhaps getting a facelift down the road, and then you have the National Sports Center. Does Blaine do enough to market itself?
I think that it does. We've really prioritized, again, similar to our Highway 65 dialogue, telling the story of the city of Blaine. So specifically in regards to like development, like how do we draw better restaurants or new grocers or new amenities to the city? Because on paper, Blaine's not impressive. Every city has the same demographic layout, number of households, maximum income, people per household density. Blaine doesn't compete with that, but where Blaine shines, it's the 10th largest city in the state of Minnesota, and again, that's 7.5 million people coming through here. That's more than US Bank Stadium sees annually. It's an impressive amount of people. So I mean, I definitely think we have assets, and we do our best, and we have subcommittees for development and marketing amongst council and staff. So yes, we absolutely constantly are telling the story of our city.
Is Blaine a city that you feel like people want to come to, either to visit or maybe live? Do you feel like it's welcoming to everybody? Because we've seen some changing demographics in
Yeah.
the Twin Cities, diversity, things like that. Does it throw its arms and hug around everybody?
I think so. I think one of the best things about the city, and I've lived here for 23 years, is its people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very rare where you don't go to Target or Cub or wherever you are, a sporting event, and you don't see some random act of kindness. Simple as holding a door or someone, picking something up if somebody drops it or anything like that. So I think absolutely, I would hope ultimately that everyone feels that they have a place here in this city. Absolutely.
So what would you prioritize if you get reelected?
Well, I think we're just going to continue on with the things we prioritized 4 years ago. We have to get Highway 65 done. That's so imperative. It literally draws a line right through the middle of our city, and it's causing a divide. I get very frustrated with this narrative about new Blaine and old Blaine. I don't like that because we're one city, and it's unfortunate that the road that runs right through the middle of it has kind of caused or given that narrative life. We want to continue to prioritize public safety. Blaine PD is hands down the best law enforcement agency in the state. It's one of the only fully staffed police agencies or law enforcement agencies in the state. They're amazing. We want to continue to work on that. We want to continue to move forward with our priority redevelopment areas. We want to continue to work with the community on what the future of Northtown might look like. And we want to continue to move forward on our 105th redevelopment project, because that's a short get. I mean, we're talking 1 to 5 years that project is going to start and or be completed. So we have a lot of great things, and I think that experience is so important. It's hard to start from the beginning and try to accomplish a goal. We're here. We're at the goal line. We just need to sneak the ball to the quarterback and get him into the end zone.
And when 65 morphs into, I don't know if it's going to be a freeway or what, but a better road that moves commuters easily from A to B, will that help galvanize instead of divide the city?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I tend to not want to go to the west side of Blaine, not because I don't like the west side of Blaine, because I know I'm going to sit at 109th at a stoplight for 20 minutes. So there's a definite frustration, and I would have to imagine that frustration lies with our residents that are on the west side of the highway. Man, you got to get to Target. Who doesn't go to Target? Or you got to get your kid to sporting events at the NSC. You got to leave a half hour early, even though it's 2 miles away, because you know you're going to be sitting there. So yeah, absolutely, that comes into play, absolutely.
It's incredible.
It's nuts. It's nuts, but we're getting there. We have final engineered designs, to your point, asking what is that going to look like. North and southbound traffic is going to go 30 feet straight up in the air, and everything east and westbound will move fairly freely through what we call peanut roundabouts. If you look at the engineered designs, they literally look like the little Mr. Peanut on the can of nuts at the grocery store. So that's what we're working towards, and we're so close. We're so close. We just need the funding.
So to use your football analogy, you feel like we're in the red zone when it comes to the 65?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure if I knock on another door at the state capitol, they're going to just roll their eyes and shut the door in my face. I mean, we could not to this point have done our job any better than we have. We took every meeting. We've been in front of every decision maker that there possibly could be at the state. So it'll be very interesting to see what this election cycle breeds as far as the openness to continue to dialogue, and not only continue to dialogue, but to get things done.
And before we wrap it up, your last chance here to tell the viewers why you should be reelected?
Again, kind of going back to that experience piece, that's so important. Stakes are so high. Highway 65 is critical. Development is critical. Public safety is critical. So I think having that experience coming into it, we're not even going to hit the ground running. We've been running since 4 years ago. So I think the experience in this in particular race is so important. We have a really new council. our council is really new. And so I think with the group that we have now, and again, that could change in the next, 3-4 weeks here, experience has to play a part in that. And I think community-driven, proven leadership is above and beyond everything else is the most important.
Thanks, Jess.
Of course. Thank you, Eric, and welcome to North Metro TV.
Great to be here in Blaine. All right. That's Jess Robertson running for City Council in Blaine, Ward 2. Of course, she's an incumbent. And this is Local Decision 2022.